Looking for a new go-to side dish that everyone in your family will love? Well, lucky for you, today's video is all about my crispy twice-baked mashed potatoes. And yes, they are also a fan favorite in our house. This is the perfect side dish for any family dinner, for the holidays, or even to feed a crowd. We've got some delicious ingredients in here, including mascarpone cheese, roasted garlic, dill. And of course, we're gonna get into a little bit more about the best potatoes for baking, tips for making your twice-baked potatoes nice and crispy from the oven, and how to make sure that the inside is nice and fluffy. Alright, let's get into today's video. So first things first, let's talk a little bit more about potatoes. They're one of my favorite pantry staple items, and that's because they can last up to 2 months if stored properly. The #1 rule for storing potatoes is to make sure it's in a cool, dark place. That could be in a cabinet or in the back of your pantry, just somewhere where they're not going to get direct sunlight. You're going to want to make sure not to put them in your refrigerator, because storing potatoes in the refrigerator will encourage a sugar to form and can leave some gray streaks when you end up cooking the potatoes. And of course, we don't want that. If you're like me and once or twice you've maybe let some potatoes go bad in your pantry and you've forgotten about them, and if they have any green little spots or sprouts coming out of them, make sure that either you're cutting those out so you're not eating those, or if they've infected too much of the potato that you're just throwing those out and buying new ones. And we want to do this to ensure that we get the best end product. There are actually quite a few varieties of different potatoes that exist. And believe it or not, there are different potatoes that are good for different cooking methods. For example, fingerling potatoes are best for roasting, while red potatoes are better for steaming or boiling. In the case of twice-baked potatoes, we're actually going to use russet potatoes. They're sometimes called Idaho potatoes, and these are the best types of potatoes for baking. As the name implies, twice-baked potatoes are baked twice. So first, we're going to put them all in the oven to make sure that the skin gets nice and crispy. And then when they come out, we're gonna whip up some mashed potatoes to fill the insides with, put them back in the oven to get everything nice, crispy, and golden brown on top. First things first, we're gonna wanna prep the potatoes. So that means scrubbing everything, making sure that all the excess dirt is off and we have a nice clean potato. From there, we're gonna pierce the skin of the potato with a knife to make sure that when it's cooking in the oven, it can properly vent. Now you're gonna wanna place the potatoes right on the top rack of your oven, and this is gonna make sure that there's air flowing throughout the whole potato and everything can get nice and crispy. We don't actually wanna wrap them in foil like you sometimes see, because that's gonna change the cooking process to steaming, and that's not what we want. Now before they go in the oven, we're gonna rub them down with some olive oil, sprinkle them with some salt just to help build up the flavor on the outside skin. Once they're in the oven, make sure that you've lined a pan with foil and put that underneath the potatoes just in case any excess oil drips off. At this point, we're also going to roast the garlic. We're actually going to use 2 whole cloves of garlic, which sounds like a lot but ends up being perfect for the end result. Now, while the potatoes are roasting in the oven, feel free to prep some different items for your dinner or get something done around the house. Those are going to take a while. It takes usually 50 to 60 minutes to get everything nice and crispy. In order to test to see if the potatoes are done roasting, you can either pierce it with a knife and make sure it pierces fairly easily, or give the potato a nice squeeze and see if it's soft inside. From here, we need to allow the potatoes to cool until you can touch them on the outside, meaning they're not going to be all the way cool, but cool enough that you can handle them without burning yourself. Now, when you take the potatoes out of the oven for the first time, you're also going to want to make sure that you remove your fats, which are your mascarpone cheese and your butter, from the refrigerator. Now, removing your fats is actually going to help us during the stage of making the mashed potatoes, which is essentially the inside of any stuffed twice-baked potato. There is a little bit of science behind making the perfect mashed potatoes, and that has to do with 2 things. First up is making sure that your fats are room temperature. And the next thing is making sure that you have a slightly warm potato. Now we want to kind of get both the fats and the potato to a similar temperature so there's not such a stark temperature difference when you're mixing those together. With the potato being a little bit warmer, it's actually going to help the room temperature fat meld and distribute really nicely when we mix up all of those potatoes. Be sure that when you're mixing the potatoes, you're mixing them just until you like them they have a good consistency, but not over that point. That's where your potatoes can start to get a little bit gummy. At this point, don't forget to add in your roasted garlic, fresh dill, and of course a little bit of salt and pepper to help season up those mashed potatoes really nicely. Once those are all mixed up, we're going to take the flesh that has already been scooped out and fill it with the mashed potatoes that we just made. Then we're gonna put them back into the oven for about 20 minutes until the tops are nice golden brown and crispy. If you're making these for a party or even for a family holiday, make sure that you hold off that last bake until right before you want to serve them, so that way they can be nice and piping hot. If you want to make sure that they're plated super nicely, you can also add a little piece of fresh dill on the top, which is what I did to mine, and put them on your favorite plates. I'll actually link my Crate & Barrel plates below. They're super pretty, they're blue, and I'm like obsessed with them. In the case that you have any leftover twice baked potatoes, which may or may not happen, you can always reheat them up. My favorite way to do that is in an air fryer. The air fryer helps them get nice and crispy just like they were when they originally came out of the oven. So if you don't have an air fryer, it is a really good investment. Mine is actually a dual air fryer and toaster oven, so I can link that one below for you. And they're only gonna need about 4 to 8 minutes to get nice golden brown and crispy again. I can't wait for you all to try these twice baked potatoes out in your own kitchen. Let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing, and I can't wait to share more cooking tips and tricks with you in the future.